Never sign a prenup with a mafia boss unless you actually memorize paragraph 47. When Alicia caught the ruthless Riccardo Moretti cheating, she didn't cry or throw a dramatic fit. She simply packed her bags, hired a shark lawyer, and used his own ironclad infidelity clause against him. Her ultimate goal was to strip the mob boss of the only thing he truly cared about controlling: full custody of his unborn heir. Alright guys, picture this because it is absolute peak drama. We have our girl, Alessia Moretti, standing outside her own bedroom, door cracked just enough to let out this golden light. She is holding her pregnant belly, practically vibrating with excitement. She came home early to drop the ultimate surprise. We are talking his favorite wine, candles, and the literal ultrasound of their baby hiding in her bag. But boom, hard stop. She hears a woman giggling like she owns the place, mixed with her mafia boss husband's voice. The same voice that sold her a fake fairy tale for 3 years. You and I both know what is coming, right? She pushes that door open and her universe shatters. Silk sheets everywhere. 2 bare bodies tangled up and the candlelight exposing the ultimate betrayal. Absolute villain origin story right here. Look at the audacity here. The blonde side piece is draped over the biggest mafia don in Milan like she is the main character, flashing a toxic smirk. Then Riccardo locks eyes with his wife. The irony is screaming at us. He has family above all, tattooed right on his neck, and it is mocking Alessia to her core. Most people would throw hands or break down crying, but not our girl. She goes completely stone cold. She stares down this terrifying underworld boss, a dude whose blood-stained hands have wiped out entire syndicates. She grips her baby bump, registers the massive plot twist, and flips the switch in her brain. No screaming. She just turns her back on the most dangerous man in Italy and walks away like he does not even exist. Pure ice water in her veins, guys. Real quick, if you are hyped to see how this revenge arc plays out, smash that like button and subscribe for more mafia drama. Now back to the absolute chaos. Every single click of her heels on that marble floor sounds like a ticking time bomb. With every step, she is leaving her old, naive self in the dust. Back in the room, the big bad mafia boss is totally losing his mind. He is cursing, untangling himself from the sheets, and screaming her name with pure panic. But does she look back? Zero chance. She is staring down 23 steps of ultra-expensive Italian marble. She used to count those exact steps back when she was still blinded by the mob wife fairy tale. Now, that massive staircase is just her grand runway out of this highly toxic marriage. She is officially done playing the fool. Those stairs are her ultimate escape route now. Suddenly, Riccardo yells out, telling her to stop. He is getting way too close. You can just picture this guy scrambling to button his shirt, running his lethal hands through his hair in a total panic. The same ruthless Don, who literally makes street enforcers cry, is now chasing his pregnant wife through a mansion like an absolute clown. She completely ignores him. The front door is right there, and her car keys are sitting exactly where she dropped them when she still believed his fake loyalty. Then, boom, his hand grabs her wrist. But listen to this boss move. She stops, but not because he overpowered her. She stops because she decides to let him catch up. That flex right there? That is the very first time in 3 years she is taking back her power. In total slow motion, she turns around to face him. Riccardo is towering over her at 6'3", absolutely spiraling out of control. His jaw is locked tight, and those famously dead eyes, the ones that literally make rival cartel bosses sweat through their suits, are practically begging her. The guy is actually terrified. He drops the classic cheetah line, begging to explain, Alessia just stares down at his hand, gripping her wrist. She looks at those heavy knuckle tattoos, the same ink she used to kiss, representing loyalty, and his bloody empire. It is all so pathetic now. And here is where she drops the absolute mic. She tells him there is nothing to explain. Her voice is so chilled out, so completely deadpan, it actually surprises her. This is the exact moment the big bad mafia boss realizes he messed up big time. She hits him with the ultimate reality check. She saw everything. He tries to stutter out some lame excuse about the side piece meaning nothing, but Alessia shuts him down instantly. Does it even matter? That shuts the Don right up. She peels his fingers off her wrist. Zero tears, zero panic. He is bracing for her to lose it, but instead, she just tells him not to follow her. He tries pulling the toxic alpha card, reminding her she is his wife. Her comeback? Pure fire. She tells him he just proved exactly how little that title actually means. He desperately brings up that she is 6 months pregnant, and she literally just hits him with a cold watch me. Boom. She walks out and shuts the heavy door with a quiet little click. No screaming, no door slamming, just absolute finality as the cold Milan night air hits her face. Milan is a city famous for brutal historical betrayals, but this one hits entirely different. Alessia marches straight to the black Mercedes he bought her for their anniversary. Irony? Overload, right? She slides into the driver's seat, and her hands are not even shaking. The sweet, innocent girl who pulled up 90 minutes ago, clutching baby ultrasound photos. She is officially dead and gone. The person gripping the steering wheel right now is fully leveled up. She is harder, colder, and absolutely refusing to let a cheating mobster break her. Here is a life lesson for you guys. When your entire world collapses, you do not have to fall down with it. She just hits the gas, cruising aimlessly through the neon lights and ancient stone streets of Milan, leaving the contradictions of her fake mafia marriage completely in the dust. She finally pulls up to a super low-key 5-star hotel, the kind of elite spot where you pay crazy money just so the staff keeps their mouths shut and asks 0 questions. And here is the massive power play. She ditches the mafia surname and checks in using her maiden name, Alessia Bellini. She is completely stripping away her status as property of the Moretti Empire. Up in the luxury suite, she is looking down at the glowing city, holding her baby bump. And get this, guys, it is a baby girl. That was the huge secret she was dying to tell him before she caught him red-handed. Standing there by the glass, she finally lets the massive wave of grief hit her. The pain is literally suffocating. It is the kind of mind-numbing betrayal that could easily drag someone under if they were not mentally bulletproof. But she holds her ground. Instead of drowning in the sadness, she totally weaponizes it. She treats her own trauma like a literal crime scene, analyzing every single detail. We are talking 3 full years of marriage, 2 years of begging the universe for a baby, and 6 miserable months of morning sickness. She went through all of that just for this guy to be hooking up with some random blonde. The worst part? She realizes the side piece looked way too comfortable in her expensive sheets. The chick was not even surprised when the door opened. This was not some random slip-up or a one-time glitch. This was a full-blown lifestyle. Ricardo had been playing her for an absolute fool, and she was just too blinded by love to catch the red flags. Suddenly, her phone starts blowing up, buzz after buzz after buzz. The big mafia boss is completely spiraling. Ricardo's caller ID is lighting up her screen like a massive toxic hazard sign. She just sits there, watching the notifications stack to the ceiling. Missed calls, unhinged texts, you name it. Finally, she hits the power button and totally ghosts him. She decides the fallout is a tomorrow problem. But spoiler alert, she gets zero sleep. She is laying in the pitch-black hotel room, replaying the last 3 years with the ruthless logic of an FBI profiler. All those late nights at the supposed syndicate meetings. Total lies. Taking phone calls down the hall. Massive red flags. He used to treat her like a queen 1 minute and completely ignore her the next. She used to justify his garbage behavior, telling herself that running a mafia empire was stressful. She convinced herself he loved her in his own twisted way. But that was pure delusion. Loving him in his own way was the dumbest cope ever. Suddenly, the baby kicks hard against her ribs. Alicia presses her hand to her stomach, and finally the dam breaks. But listen, she is not crying over losing a cheating husband. She is crying for her unborn daughter. It hits her that this innocent kid is going to be born into a completely shattered family, with a father who is nothing but a ruthless, lying fraud. She actually whispers a heartbreaking apology to her baby in the dark. But while those tears are dropping, a completely lethal level of determination is locking into place. She makes a vow right then and there. She is never going to let her daughter think getting disrespected is just part of the deal. She refuses to teach her baby girl that a woman loses her worth the second she becomes slightly inconvenient to a powerful man. Growing up, Alicia had to watch her own mom play the silent, suffering wife while her dad ran around doing whatever he wanted. She literally watched her mother fade away into nothing. And she promised herself she would never repeat that toxic generational curse. So, whatever insane mafia war Ricardo is planning to drag her back, she is ready. She is officially done biting her tongue. Fast forward to the morning. The Milan sky is looking super grey and moody. Alicia takes a shower, gets dressed, and stares at herself in the luxury bathroom mirror like she is scanning a stranger. On paper, she looks exactly the same. She still has the same dark hair and the same striking features that originally hooked the underworld boss at that crowded art gallery years ago. But the vibe? Totally different. The naive girl who thought she could fix a monster is gone. The light in her eyes has completely hardened into steel. Ricardo used to obsess over her softness, always calling her gentle and pure, like she was his little escape from the criminal underworld. Well, guess what? That softness is dead. Softness did absolutely nothing to protect her. Being sweet just made her an easy mark. She orders room service breakfast, eating mechanically purely because her unborn daughter needs to eat. Then she finally hits the power button on her phone. Boom. 47 missed calls, 32 deranged texts, and 3 voicemails. She casually swipes past the classic gaslighting texts, the "where are yous" and the "I can explain" nonsense, sending them straight to the trash. But those voicemails? She clicks play. The very first one is absolute chaos. The untouchable mafia don is fully panicking, begging her to call him back. Peak karma. So picture this, you guys. The big bad mafia boss is literally leaving voicemails sounding like a desperate ex. First message, he is begging her to call him, saying he knows how bad it looked. Second message, he tries to act tough again, claiming he sends goons out just to make sure she and the baby are safe. He even drops the whole "do not punish our child" line. But that third voicemail? Pure desperation. He is sitting in her closet, smelling her perfume, crying about how he will spend the rest of his life fixing his mess. It just goes to show you, folks, you never know what you have until you completely wreck it. Actions have consequences, and all the power in the underworld cannot buy back lost trust. Alicia does not shed a single tear over his pathetic voicemails. She plays them exact 2 times, hits delete, and immediately dials up a top-tier divorce lawyer. This attorney is a total pro, highly recommended by a college buddy who also escaped a toxic marriage. He is sitting there, totally chill, not even blinking when she drops bombshell name, Riccardo Moretti. He just writes it down and calls her Mrs. Moretti, but our girl shuts that down instantly. She tells him it is Miss Bellini from now on. The lesson here is simple. Never let a broken relationship define your identity. Reclaiming your name is the first step in taking back your power, especially when you are dealing with a certified underworld kingpin. The lawyer tries to warn her. He tells her that divorcing a literal mafia boss is going to be wild, considering all the dangerous enemies and underground money involved. But Alicia is totally locked in. She tells him straight up that she already read the prenup she signed 3 years ago, and she knows it has a massive loophole about infidelity that plays right into her hands. The lawyer is actually stunned because she did her homework overnight. She does not even care about his dirty money or those tainted mansions anymore. She just wants full custody of her baby. Honestly, the greatest lesson to take from this is that preparation is your ultimate weapon. When life throws you a massive curveball, read the fine print and strike back. Now here is the ultimate plot twist, guys. Alicia memorized paragraph 47 of that prenup, which specifically rips custody away from the cheating spouse if they get caught. She rubs her baby bump and vows that her kid will never grow up thinking betrayal is just part of a normal marriage. She refuses to let her daughter spend weekends with random mistresses. The attorney asks if she is absolutely sure about going to war with Riccardo, warning her that things could get super dangerous and incredibly expensive. But she is not backing down for a second. The life lesson here is crystal clear. Never settle for someone who treats loyalty as an option. You have to set the standard for how people are allowed to treat you and your family. Alicia drops the hammer, telling the lawyer there is 0 chance they are getting back together. So the attorney pulls out the paperwork, and the legal battle officially kicks off. Over the next 3 days, she hides out at a hotel, totally ghosting Riccardo, while he desperately tries to freeze all their joint bank accounts. Classic controlling, toxic behavior, right? He thinks he can starve her out, completely forgetting she has a secret trust fund from her grandfather that she never touched during their entire marriage. She was totally prepared. The takeaway from this situation is huge. Always maintain your own independence and have a backup plan. Financial freedom is literally the biggest shield you can have against a manipulative partner. By day 4, Riccardo is throwing a total tantrum and hires 4 elite lawyers to fight the divorce and get this absolute garbage excuse. His team claims the cheating was just a one-time slip-up with an employee named Valentina Rossi because of, wait for it, marital stress. Alicia actually laughs out loud at that nonsense. What stress? The stress of having a loyal wife and a perfect pregnancy, and she knows he is straight up lying. And this Valentina girl was definitely a full-blown mistress, not some random employee. It is wild how toxic people will try to play the victim. The real lesson here is that cheaters will always invent excuses to justify their garbage behavior. Do not ever let someone gaslight you into taking the blame for their disrespect. So the lawyer asks how long the affair has been going on, and Alicia flashes this super sharp villain-era smile. She tells him she is going to find out because Riccardo is not the only one with crazy resources. Exactly 1 week after the massive blow-up, she marches right back into the Moretti mansion, not to forgive him, but to pack up her stuff in broad daylight at exactly noon, with 2 independent bodyguards and her lawyer right by her side. Ricardo is waiting in the lobby, looking like a total mess despite his fancy charcoal suit. The life lesson in this moment is legendary. Face your problems head on, but always bring backup. Never walk into an emotionally loaded situation without protecting your peace and keeping your boundaries completely solid. The tension in the air is absolutely insane right now. Ricardo is standing there with his dark hair slicked back and his Mafia tattoos standing out on his neck. Those tattoos literally say family above all, which is the biggest joke of the century today. He says her name, but was shaking and desperate. Alessia just hits him with absolute ice, stating she is only there for her personal jewelry and documents, and she will be gone in exactly 2 hours. She completely shuts down his attempt to talk. The lesson here is that hypocrisy is always revealed by actions, not words. Someone can literally tattoo their values on their body, but if they do not actually live by them, it means absolutely nothing. Real loyalty is proven by what you do when nobody is watching. She looks him dead in the eye and warns him that if he tries to stop her, her security will document every single move for the legal case. You can literally see the muscles in Ricardo's jaw twitching as he fights the urge to go full mafia boss and control the situation. For the very first time, Alessia feels zero need to comfort him. He awkwardly mentions that he cleared the staff out hoping they could talk, bringing up the baby to guilt trip her. But Alessia just coldly reminds him that her pregnancy did not stop him from jumping into bed with another woman. Honestly, the vital life lesson here is to stop protecting the feelings of people who never protected yours. Letting go of the need to fix a toxic person is the ultimate power move. She totally roasts his fake daddy act and starts walking up the stairs. Ricardo panic shouts that he loves her and she pauses, but does not even look back. She just hits him with the coldest line ever, telling him she does not believe him and that they clearly have completely different definitions of love. She keeps walking, promising to be out by 2 o'clock. She starts moving through the massive, luxurious mansion like an absolute ghost, packing her grandmother's jewelry and leaving all his expensive gifts behind. The major life lesson in this scene is that true love requires respect and faithful action. If somebody's version of love includes betraying you behind your back, you need to pack your bags and completely redefine your standards. She leaves the wedding album behind because it is pure trash to her now. After packing her personal documents, she makes a total boss move and sneaks into his private office. She is just looking for financial receipts to prove the affair, picking the lock because living with the mob actually taught her some skills. But what she finds in his drawer is 1,000,000 times worse than bank statements. She finds an entire hidden box stuffed with printed photos of Valentina and a whole bunch of other girls. It is a literal timeline of betrayal dating back for years. The lesson to take away here is that secrets always find their way into the light. When you ignore the red flags, the universe will eventually hand you the complete, undeniable truth. She is 6 months pregnant, sitting on the cold floor of his private office, staring at a massive pile of physical evidence, proving he was cheating on her even before they tied the knot. It is just sickening. Something inside Alessia permanently snaps right then and there. She does not lose her spirit, but she absolutely loses every single ounce of mercy she ever had for this man. At exactly 2 o'clock, she walks downstairs. Ricardo is waiting in the foyer, looking like a shattered mess, his scary mafia mask completely falling apart. She asks him if he remembers his little trophy collection in the drawer. The life lesson here is that betrayal destroys empathy. Do not ever expect grace from the person you ruthlessly broke in the dark. Alacia just shreds him, sarcastically thanking him for dating the photos so she could see he was cheating before and after the wedding. Ricardo goes completely pale. She asks him straight up if he ever even planned on being loyal or if she was just his shiny, respectable wife while he partied on the side. When he tries to beg, she throws her hand up and shuts him down. She tells him she does not want any fake apologies because she is going to absolutely obliterate him in court, using his own nasty photo collection. Honestly, the powerful life lesson here is that the truth is your strongest weapon. When someone hands you the evidence of their own destruction, you use it to protect yourself and build a better future without them. We are about to uncover how this epic showdown wraps up. She promises to use paragraph 47 of his own prenup to take full custody, get massive child support, and rip away the only thing he actually loves, which is control. She steps right up into his personal space, close enough to see the veins popping out on his neck and his tattooed fists clenching at his sides. She whispers that he should have hidden his little trophies better, or, just kept his vows. As she walks out the door, his hand shoots out, hovering in the air without touching her. He begs her not to take his daughter away, promising he will do absolutely anything. The final lesson here is simple. Arrogance will always be your downfall. When you think you are totally untouchable, you end up losing everything that actually matters. Let us look at this absolute madness. You and I. Ricardo thought he had it all under control, right? He is begging Alacia at the door, telling her he will give her anything if she just stays. For a split second, she looks at him and sees the dominant alpha male who swept her off her feet 3 years ago, the guy who whispered sweet nothings and promised her the world on their wedding night. But guess what? He was a massive liar. She drops a heavy truth bomb on him, saying he should have thought about his family before he made his side piece the main priority. Boom. Door slammed in his face. The life lesson here is simple. You cannot build a kingdom on broken promises. What comes next is an all-out war, and she is not planning to lose. The legal battle was absolute chaos, guys. Ricardo unleashed his high-paid lawyers to contest every single thing. They tried to throw out the secretly obtained photos of his cheating, intimidate witnesses, and even claimed the prenup required proof of a long-term slip-up. Not just scumbag tactics. But Alacia? She did not back down for a second. Her team fought tooth and nail while she set up her new life. She scored a secure downtown apartment, far from his mansion, but completely hers. She focused heavily on her pregnancy, hitting up her weekly doctor visits to make sure the baby was thriving. She even started seeing a therapist, which was a tough pill to swallow. The lesson? Seeking help is actually a massive flex of strength. She thought needing therapy meant she was weak, but this therapist was incredibly chill. No judgment, no pity, just pure listening, while Alacia unloaded 3 years of mobster marriage drama and the terrifying reality of her future. During their 3rd session, the therapist hits her with a massive reality check. Alacia kept calling herself blind and foolish, but the therapist shut that down fast. She told Alacia that trusting the man you love is not naive. It is normal. The real boss move was packing her bags the second the truth came out. Honestly, the takeaway here is profound. You are never foolish for giving your trust, but you are powerful when you revoke it from those who play games. She refused to stay in the dark. Alessia really had to process that. She told the therapist how Ricardo made her feel incredibly special, like she was the one glowing light in his dark, twisted mafia world. She actually believed their love was untouched by his violent power games. And honestly, who would not want to believe that? The therapist straight up told her that wanting to believe in pure love is just a human trait. It does not make her weak. The blame falls entirely on the guy who used that trust against her. Hearing that finally broke her walls down, and she cried. At 7 months pregnant, she decided to step back into the spotlight. She attended a high-profile gallery opening, which was wildly ironic since it was the exact place they first met 4 years ago. Showing up to this event was a total power play. She was making a massive statement that she would not hide in shame or become just another tragic piece of elite gossip. She walked in wearing an elegant emerald green dress that perfectly hugged her pregnant figure. Minimal makeup, grandmother's pearls, completely flawless. She knew she looked devastatingly composed, and she absolutely knew he would be there. And boom, there he was. Ricardo was standing across the room, surrounded by his mob associates, looking like the terrifying boss he was. His suit was sharp, and those neck and hand tattoos were fully visible. They used to thrill her, but now they were just glaring warning signs. Lesson learned. Red flags are not decorations. Their eyes locked across that crowded room, and the tension was off the charts. Alessia did not blink. Neither did he. It was like the entire gallery just vanished. No art, no rich people whispering. Just the two of them in a silent, deadly standoff. Then Alessia did the ultimate savage move. It was not a sweet muzzle. She smiled. It was the muzzle of a winner. She turned to Ko, this highly influential older business guy who used to work with her grandfather, and just laughed at whatever he was saying. She could literally feel Ricardo glaring daggers into her back. Her internal thought? Let him burn. She spent the rest of the night working the room, reminding everyone that she was a boss in her own right, not just his shadow. Naturally, the rich elite were whispering like crazy. You could practically hear the gossip echoing off the walls. People were trading rumors about Ricardo's mistress being incredibly young, calling Alessia brave, and hyping up how she was absolutely destroying him in court. Alessia just let them talk, giving them zero drama and pure elegance. But then, Marco casually put his hand on her back to guide her to the champagne. It was completely innocent, like an uncle helping out. But to a jealous mafia boss watching from across the room, it looked like a direct challenge. The whole vibe in the gallery suddenly turned freezing cold. Alessia felt the danger before she even turned around. Ricardo was making his move. Pay attention to your gut, guys. She knew she had about 30 seconds before her toxic ex completely lost his mind in public. She smoothly excused herself from Marco, claiming she saw a friend, and glided away before Ricardo could even get close. She strategically moved into a group of women near the entrance. Safety in numbers, right? Witnesses are a girl's best friend. Ricardo froze right in the middle of the room. Even from 20 feet away, you could see the pure rage radiating off him. His jaw was clenched tight, and his tattooed hands were balled into fists, like he was fighting his own instincts to run over and grab her. She casually looked over her shoulder, locking eyes with him one last time. Her silent message was deafening. I am not yours anymore, buddy. That look she gave him was a total knockout blow. His eyes went pitch black with this insane mix of pure fury, deep heartbreak, and toxic obsession. It was honestly terrifying. But Alessia? She just turned around and walked away without looking back. She left the party early, using the classic pregnancy fatigue excuse, but inside, she was buzzing with absolute victory. She had faced the big bad wolf, and she did not even flinch. She proved to him and every single snob in that room that she was indestructible. As she slid into the back of her luxury car, she finally closed her eyes, letting out a sigh of exhausted triumph. The lesson here is huge. Sometimes the best revenge is just showing them they have zero power over you. She was just catching her breath when a voice cut through the dark. That was quite a performance. Her eyes snapped open and her heart almost jumped out of her chest. Ricardo was sitting right there, hidden in the shadows of her own back seat. How did he pull that off? Simple. He casually drops the bomb that her driver works for him now. Actually, he claims every security detail in the city is either on his payroll or terrified of him. He is totally flexing his mafia muscle, acting like she can never hide from him. But Alessia keeps her cool and tells him to get out. He fires back, claiming everything she has, her new life, her apartment, her clothes, traces back to his dirty money. But she is not buying his intimidation tactics at all. She reminds him that her grandfather's trust is handled by a firm his family relies on. They are untouchable, and so is she. But Ricardo leans in, and suddenly the scary mob boss mask slips. You can see pure desperation written all over his face. He is literally begging her to drop the divorce. He offers her anything. Separate rooms, endless space, whatever it takes, as long as she does not take their daughter away. But Alessia is fiercely unforgiving. She tells him straight up that he lost his family the second he decided to cheat. He tries to play it off as a mistake, but she snaps back, calling it a pattern. She found his sick little collection of photos, trophies from his affairs. The truth is, secrets always leave a paper trail. She absolutely unloads on him. She tells him those photos prove exactly what kind of monster he is. There is no way she is letting a guy like that raise her kid. He tries to pull the biology card, but she shuts that down immediately. Biology does not make you a father. Being there, staying loyal, and keeping your promises is what makes a real dad, and he completely failed on all fronts. Suddenly, he snaps. He moves so incredibly fast that he is right. Let us set the scene. Alessia is staring down Ricardo, the literal king of the underworld. She asks if he really wants to add assault to his massive list of sins. For one terrifying second, you can actually see the monster inside him wake up. All that violent mafia boss energy suddenly pointed right at her. But then, absolute plot twist. The boss drops his hands. His grip loosens. And for the first time ever, the big bad mafia don looks terrified of losing his family. His voice actually cracks as he begs, saying he does not know how to fix this mess. And Alessia is ice cold. She flat out tells him that choices have consequences, even for untouchable men like him. Ricardo is completely broken by the rejection, and in a final cold snap up, he orders Alessia to get out of his car. Alright guys, picture this absolute cinematic masterpiece of a breakup. Alessia just violently snatches her wrist out of the Don's grip. She looks this terrifying mafia boss dead in the eyes and drops the ultimate boundary, telling him no texts, no calls, just lawyers. She literally tells him to stop acting like a creepy movie villain lurking in tinted SUVs. And get this, Ricardo, the most dangerous man in the city, just takes it. He steps out into the freezing night, looking completely shattered. Alessia watches his car speed off. But let me tell you, nobody is sleeping tonight. The vibes are completely wrecked. Here is a life lesson for you. Setting boundaries is hard, especially when your ex is a literal walking red flag. But sometimes you just have to rip off the band-aid. Now, the thing that really shook her wasn't his anger. It was the desperation, this absolute unit of a man, Riccardo Moretti, who solves every single problem with straight-up violence and mountains of cash, actually had his voice crack. For 3 whole years, she thought he was this invincible kingpin who could bend the entire universe to his will. But now, he is admitting he cannot fix this, and the craziest plot twist, a tiny, suppressed part of her actually wanted to hug this walking time bomb and tell him it is going to be okay. But nope, not happening. She touches her pregnant belly, feels her baby kick, and snaps back to reality. Sometimes the hardest lesson in life is realizing that you cannot fix a broken person, no matter how much you love them. Save yourself first. Listen up, because this is where Alessia goes full boss mode. She isn't doing this for some petty revenge arc. She is doing it so her daughter doesn't grow up thinking it is normal to let a toxic man walk all over her dignity. She refuses to be that pathetic trope who sacrifices her life on the altar of romantic delusion. Fast forward, she is 8 months pregnant, and the divorce is an absolute war zone. We are talking high-speed, legal artillery, motions, and depositions firing back and forth. She moved to a secret apartment guarded by elite security with 0 Mafia ties. Honestly, guys, the lesson here is simple. True strength isn't about fighting back with fists. It is about breaking generational curses so your kids can actually thrive in a healthy, peaceful environment. Let me tell you, this security detail is draining her grandfather's trust fund like crazy, but the peace of mind, absolutely priceless. But here is the massive catch. During this whole legal discovery phase, her lawyers dig up the literal dirtiest secrets of Riccardo's empire. Stuff she purposely ignored. We are talking major smuggling rings, brutal protection rackets, and get this, a rival boss who mysteriously vanished right around their wedding day. Her lawyer straight up looks at her and drops the hardest truth bomb, saying she was married to a literal monster. And deep down, she already knew. Life lesson time. Ignoring the massive red flags in your relationship doesn't make them go away. It just means you are going to trip over them later, when the truth finally comes out. You and I have probably both made this mistake, turning a blind eye because the truth is just too ugly. Now, Alessia is having straight-up nightmares about blood, bodies, and that icy look Riccardo gets when he is making people disappear. She is finally asking the horrific question, did the same hands that held her at night also take people's lives? Spoiler alert, they totally did. She had been pulling off the most insane mental gymnastics to love a guy whose entire empire was built on sheer violence. But that naive girl is gone now, replaced by a woman whose vision is 2020, and the clarity is absolutely devastating. Then, out of nowhere on a random Tuesday, a handwritten letter drops at her lawyer's office, and it is beautifully written by the Mafia boss himself. Get ready, because Riccardo's letter is an absolute masterpiece of toxic Mafia romance. He kicks it off by refusing to say sorry, basically admitting that his apologies are totally useless now. He tells her that he could write 100 letters, and none of it would fix the horrible stuff she witnessed. But then he drops this sort of emotional bomb. He says he only married her because she made him feel human. Think about it, guys. This dude was raised in a freezing cold, purely transactional underworld where everybody is just leverage and kindness is literally a calculated trap. He was taught that love equals a fast ticket to the grave. The takeaway here? A toxic environment completely warps your mind, and sometimes even the most powerful people are just broken, terrified kids. He goes on to say that when he met her, she didn't just see a terrifying mafia boss or a massive paycheck. She saw a real human being. She saw the tiny shred of decency he had buried under all that violent ambition. He straight up confesses he still loves her for that. But here is the tragic reality check. Love and deeply ingrained mafia habits are two very different things. He just could not stop compartmentalizing his life, falsely believing his dark, bloody underworld wouldn't infect their shiny, happy marriage. He tried to break the cycle, but ultimately he failed and became the exact monster she feared. Here is a solid life lesson. You cannot permanently separate your bad habits from your real life, because eventually the dark stuff will always spill over and ruin it. He wraps up the letter with the ultimate tragic boss move. He isn't begging her to come back, and he is not even asking for forgiveness. He just wants her to know that his massive betrayal had nothing to do with her worth. It was 100% about his own brokenness and his epic failure to be the decent guy she deserved. He straight up admits that she and their unborn daughter deserve way better than his mafia chaos. Alacia reads this heavy letter 3 entire times, completely stone-faced, locks it in her desk drawer, and goes to her doctor's appointment like her heart isn't literally bleeding out. Then, boom, plot twist. 3 weeks early, her water suddenly breaks right in the middle of her living room, throwing everything into absolute, uncontrollable overdrive. Stick with me here, because this hospital scene is pure chaos. We are talking blinding lights, doctors screaming, and massive waves of pain. Her mom and her college bestie are rushing around, forming an impenetrable defense squad for what becomes the longest 12 hours of her entire life. But in those tiny, breathless moments between contractions, her mind drifts right back to Ricardo, not the mafia kingpin who shattered her world, but the guy who should be holding her hand right now. The father who is going to miss the most important moment of his life because he chose the criminal underworld over his own family. Despite all her blistering rage, she feels this crushing wave of actual grief. Lesson learned: the choices you make in the dark will rob you of your brightest moments. She is mourning the picture-perfect family that literally vanished into thin air. Then, at exactly 3:47 in the morning, baby Giuliana Moretti enters the chat. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, rocking a full head of dark hair, and her father's intense, sharp facial features. The second Alacia holds her, the entire universe completely shifts focus onto this tiny, impossible little human. She whispers hello to her brave, beautiful girl, and as Giuliana blinks up with those dark, Ricardo-like eyes, Alacia's heart absolutely shatters and repairs itself simultaneously. Suddenly, the messy divorce and the scary mafia drama, it all becomes irrelevant background static. The simple lesson here is that sometimes it takes a brand new beginning to make you realize what truly matters. She looks at her newborn and makes the ultimate vow. I will protect you, I will be enough, and I will give you the world. She is crying so hard she doesn't even notice until her mom grabs a tissue and tells her to rest. But she literally cannot stop staring at this baby. Now here is where the plot goes crazy. Within hours, Ricardo knows. Of course he does. The guy is a mob boss with eyes and ears in every single hospital and government building in the city. Even though she specifically banned him from the delivery room, there was zero chance he was missing this. He shows up the very next morning, not kicking doors down like a thug, but just standing quietly in the hallway. He is rocking a perfectly tailored dark suit, but he looks like he hasn't slept a wink in absolute days. His dark mafia tattoos are practically popping off his neck, and he honestly looks like a total wreck. Her mom spots him first, immediately tenses up, and asks if they should call the security guards. But Alessia glances through the hospital window and locks eyes with him. She watches his gaze immediately drop to the tiny bundle in her arms, his entire massive frame practically leaning toward the child he hasn't even met yet. Against all odds, she stops her mom and says, "Let him in, just 5 minutes, with witnesses." He deserves to see his kid exactly one time. Her mom's face screams absolute disapproval, but she steps aside anyway. Listen, the lesson is that showing mercy to someone who completely wronged you takes an insane amount of strength, and it is totally for your closure. You and I are going to unpack this intense stare down right now. Ricardo steps into the room moving in super slow motion, terrified that one wrong flinch might scare away his wife and the daughter he almost lost forever. His voice is completely wrecked as he croaks out her name and says thank you. But Alessia is ice cold. She snaps back, telling him this isn't forgiveness. It is just a one-time offer so the baby can meet her dad. He takes 3 heavy steps to the bed, and up close, he looks absolutely destroyed. Deep, dark bags under his eyes, skin pale as a ghost, and the hands that used to run a criminal empire are literally shaking as he reaches out, quietly asking if he can hold her. The moral here, guys, true power isn't money or fear, it is holding what you love most. Every single protective instinct in Alessia's brain is screaming at her to keep the baby away from him. This guy is a walking red flag, and he seriously does not deserve to hold her. But let us be real. You and I know the kid needs her dad, no matter how much drama is going down between the parents. So she carefully hands over baby Juliana. And guys, the contrast is insane. This ruthless mob boss holds the tiny baby like she is made of the most fragile glass on earth. His eyes, usually dead and cold as ice, completely melt. He whispers her name, Juliana, and softly mentions it was his grandmother's name. Alessia just quietly replies that she remembers. The man is completely hypnotized, refusing to even look up from his daughter's tiny face. He calls the baby perfect, and Alessia fires back that she has his nose and eyes, adding a sarcastic remark that heaven better help her. At this point, she cannot even tell if she is joking or just drowning in pure despair. The tension in that hospital room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Just the 3 of them. A completely shattered family surrounded by the steady hum of medical machines. Then Ricardo drops an absolute bombshell. He casually says he will sign whatever she wants. The divorce papers, the custody agreement, all of it. He offers her full custody with only supervised visits for himself. He literally says he will do whatever it takes to protect them from the monster he has become. Alessia is stunned and asks why. He finally looks up and the truth hits her. When she looks into his eyes, there is nothing but absolute ruin. The ultimate boss of the underground, a man who runs an entire city, has been completely broken by a tiny 6-pound infant and a wife who is totally done with his garbage. His voice completely breaks as he admits she was right about everything. He confesses he threw away his entire world for absolutely nothing, just trying to play the part of a ruthless gangster. Now, he is facing the brutal reality that his own kid will grow up knowing her father is a monster, and he admits she will be entirely right. He presses a soft, heartbreaking goodbye kiss to the baby's forehead and hands her back. He promises he is done fighting her and will not make this divorce into a messy war. He begs her to just let him see his daughter sometimes, even if it means strict supervision with Alessia watching his every single move. The guy completely shatters right there. Picture this, guys. Riccardo Moretti, the absolute most feared kingpin in all of Milan, is literally covering her face, fighting back tears like a broken man. Seeing him this pathetic, Something tiny shifts inside Alacia. It is absolutely not forgiveness, because let us be real, what he did is unforgivable. But she quietly agrees to think about it. He gives one stiff nod and walks out without looking back. After that intense showdown, Alacia dives headfirst into the pure chaos of being a new mom. We are talking endless sleepless nights, crazy feeding schedules, and total survival mode. Her mom sticks around for the first couple of weeks to help out before heading home, and her friends basically form a protective squad. They bring endless food and take turns holding the baby so Alacia can actually take a shower and breathe for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, the legal team is moving at lightning speed. True to his dramatic hospital promise, Ricardo signs every single document without a fight. He hands over full custody and drops an absolutely insane amount of child support. Honestly, enough cash to keep the kid living in luxury until she turns 90. He gets 2 supervised visits a month, strictly on Alacia's turf, with her watching like a hawk. The divorce officially wraps up on a gloomy Tuesday in October, completely ending their chaotic era. Staring at those final divorce papers, Alacia does not feel like she won the war. There is no massive relief or victory lap. She just feels totally hollow inside. But life keeps moving, as it always does. Little Juliana hits the 1-month mark, then 2, then 3, and honestly, the kid is a total angel. She sleeps like a rock and smiles all the time, which is exactly the kind of break Alacia desperately needs right now. But here is the massive catch. The baby is turning into an exact clone of Ricardo. She has his intense eyes, his sharp chin, and even makes the exact same bossed-up facial expressions he uses when crushing his rivals. Alacia tries so hard to ignore it, burying her feelings as the scheduled, heavily guarded dad visits start rolling in. When visitation day hits, Ricardo is basically a machine. He shows up perfectly on time and leaves the exact second he is supposed to, and gives his daughter 100% of his attention. He plays totally by the book. No trying to sweet talk Alacia, no pushing limits, just pure dad mode. And honestly, it is tripping Alacia out because the most dangerous man in the city is acting like father of the year. He happily changes dirty diapers without a single groan. He sits there holding the sleeping baby for hours, and get this, he even sings traditional Italian lullabies in this deep, smooth voice. Alacia watches this hardcore mobster acting like a giant softie from across the living room, and it completely scrambles her brain. She cannot wrap her head around it. This gentle dad is definitely not the cold-blooded snake who destroyed their marriage. He does not look like a mastermind mob boss or a massive cheater who collected trophies of his terrible choices. It feels like she is watching a total stranger. Or maybe, just maybe, people are wildly complicated and she never really understood the 2 sides of his twisted personality. Life stays pretty quiet for a few months until one perfectly normal evening completely shatters the peace. Alacia is just chilling with a glass of wine while the baby sleeps, enjoying the silence. Suddenly, the doorbell buzzes. She checks the security camera and sees a super nervous, sweaty young guy standing there clutching a mysterious envelope. The nervous delivery guy stutters out her name, calling her Mrs. before correcting himself. He claims the package is super important info regarding Ricardo. Every single red flag in Alacia's brain goes off at once. She carefully snatches the envelope through a tiny crack in the door. The second the guy scrambles away, she rips it open, and boom! It is a fresh photo of Valentina, the exact same mistress who wrecked her life. The cray part? Ricardo is standing right behind her in a hospital hallway, his famous tattooed hand resting on her arm. The timestamp proves it was taken just 3 days ago. Alicia is seeing absolute red. She immediately dials her lawyer, screaming that Ricardo is still seeing the mistress. But the lawyer warns her to slow down, pointing out that dangerous mobsters have tons of enemies who love playing sick mind games. The lawyer drops some heavy truth. There are easily dozens of ruthless rivals out there who would love to throw Ricardo's personal life into total chaos. The photo could be legit, or it could be a masterful Photoshop job designed to trigger a massive war. They need hard proof before making a move. But if it is real, the lawyer promises they will drag him back to court and strip away his remaining visitation rights completely. Honestly, Alicia should feel fired up and ready to destroy him, but she is just so mentally exhausted by the constant drama. Instead of blowing up right away, she decides to play detective. During the very next daddy-daughter visit, she watches him like a hawk, hunting for all those classic lying tells she memorized during their marriage. She's looking for that tight jaw or that shifty eye movement that always gave him away. But here is the crazy part. He looks exactly the same as always. He is completely zeroed in on the baby, showing this deep, raw devotion that he never even gave Alicia during their entire marriage. But then her brain reminds her that he used to act devoted to her too, right before he stabbed her in the back. She stews on it for a whole week before finally making her move. She waits until the visit is completely over, and the nanny has the baby tucked away safely. Out in the quiet hallway, she corners him. She tells him they need to talk, and he freezes up, totally shocked since she has basically given him the silent treatment for months. With zero hesitation, she whips out the scandalous photograph and shoves it in his face, watching his reaction like a hawk. His face instantly startles through a massive roller coaster of wild emotions. First, he looks confused, then he recognizes the picture, and suddenly, that terrifying mob boss shadow crosses his face. It is a chilling reminder of exactly how dangerous this guy really is. He demands to know where she got it, and she casually drops that it was an anonymous delivery. He asks if she actually believes it, and she throws the question right back at him. After a super tense, agonizing silence, he admits that it is both true and false. Talk about a massive plot twist. He confesses the photo is real and he was at the hospital with the mistress, but claims the whole situation is a massive setup. He runs his hand through his hair, clearly stressed out, and drops an absolute nuke of a truth bomb. Valentina is battling severe cancer. She has zero family and zero money, so she begged him to fund her final chance at survival. Alicia is absolutely completely stunned and asks if he seriously expects her to buy that story. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her not to believe him, but to call the hospital and verify the medical bills herself. He openly admits that he completely nuked her trust and deserves zero sympathy. But then she hits him with the ultimate question. Why on earth would he spend a fortune to save the woman who helped ruin his marriage? His answer is chillingly flat. He says it is because she is dying, and no matter what terrible sins they committed together, nobody deserves to die in agonizing pain alone. And guys, here is the life lesson we all need to hear. He looks away and whispers that he is genuinely trying to be a better man, even when absolutely nobody is watching to give him credit. That is when you know real change is actually happening. Alay stared a hole into this guy's face, hunting for the lie. She couldn't find a single trace. "I will verify," she told him, voice cold as ice. "And if you are lying, you can kiss your visitation rights goodbye." Why offer that? Because he was not lying. He just stepped back and said, "Check the facts, then decide." Boom. He walked right out. She just stood there, crushing that photo, wondering how her life became this complicated mess. So she checked. The hospital confirmed it. Valentina Rossi had stage 3 cancer, and an anonymous trust paid the bills. Here is a simple life lesson. Always trust your gut, but make sure you verify the receipts before you burn a bridge to ashes. Look, you and I both know a mob boss paying for his mistress's treatments is the ultimate mind game situation. Alessia is completely tearing her hair out right now. Is Riccardo still sneaking around with his side piece? Or is the ultimate mafia don actually trying to do one single good deed in a lifetime of pure, unadulterated street crime? During his next supervised visit, she stops looking for his usual toxic lies. Instead, she watches this absolute paradox of a man. The terrifying Don Moretti is holding baby Giuliana like she is made of spun glass, using this soft, gentle voice that his street soldiers have literally never heard. Life lesson here, guys. People are incredibly complicated, and sometimes the biggest monsters hide a soft spot you never expected. When little Giuliana starts crying, this ruthless kingpin literally paces the floor with her until she falls asleep. No fake acting here, bro. His love for his kid is 100% real. Alessia is having a massive reality check, wondering if a guy can be a total dirtbag husband, but still a devoted father. Did she cancel him too fast? Fast forward to the baby's first Christmas, and it is a super low-key vibe. Just Alessia's mom, some friends, a tiny tree, and a clueless but happy baby staring at the lights. Riccardo is totally locked out of this picture because Alessia literally banned him from holidays in the custody battle. The lesson to take away? You can establish firm boundaries to protect your peace, even if it leaves someone else out in the cold. But hold up, because plot twist time. That evening, a mystery package drops. No return address, just her name written in that handwriting she knows too well. Boom. It is a rare first edition of her favorite Italian poetry book. She mentioned this book once, years ago. Tucked inside is a wild note from Riccardo saying he remembers every single dream she ever had. He just completely forgot to act like it mattered. Alessia is standing there, holding this ancient book, totally short-circuiting. She is pretty sure she does not love him anymore, but the vibe is getting messy. The lesson here is simple. True attention to detail is incredibly powerful, and sometimes words you spoke years ago carry the absolute heaviest weight today. It is not hate either, guys. It is that awkward, painful middle ground where you just do not know how to feel. As the new year rolls in, things actually start chilling out. Alessia stops sweating bullets during the supervised visits. Riccardo starts casually dropping massive updates about his mafia empire like it is small talk. He is literally restructuring the mob, stepping back from the brutal violence, and handing off power to his top guys. He wants to build a clean legacy so his daughter does not grow up ashamed. When Alessia asks why he is spilling all this tea, he straight up admits he just wants her to stop seeing him as a complete monster. The lesson is clear as day. Growth is a slow process, and rebuilding broken trust takes real, consistent effort. He tells her he is not ready to give up hope, and man, that sits heavy in her mind. But then, absolute disaster strikes. Alessia is just picking up her baby when she gets a blocked call. Some super creepy, cold voice calls her Mrs. Moretti. They do not care that she is divorced. They drop a massive bomb, saying they hold her and the baby's safety in their hands, and tell her to let Riccardo know that Victor Anton sends his regards. They literally threaten the baby for her father's debts before hanging up. Alessia is terrified. She does not call the cops. She calls Riccardo Because when underworld trash comes knocking, you need an underworld king to answer. Life lesson here. When you are in completely over your head, you have to call the expert, even if it is your ex. He picks up on the very first ring, and she panics, dropping the name Victor Anton. The line goes dead silent. Then Ricardo speaks in a voice that is basically the Grim Reaper himself, totally flat and extremely dangerous. He orders her to lock every door and wait. Boom. 12 minutes later, tires are screaming outside. Ricardo does not just show up. He brings the entire cavalry. Yes. 2 SUVs full of heavily armed Mafia enforcers roll up, completely locking down the street. Ricardo bursts through that door, looking like an absolute hurricane, ready to destroy anyone in his path. It is peak mob boss energy. The big life lesson to remember here is that true loyalty means showing up instantly when it matters most. No questions asked and absolutely no delays. His eyes lock onto her and the baby right away, checking for injuries. Once he knows they are safe, he demands every single detail of the call. As Alessia repeats the threat, Ricardo's face turns to solid stone. He explains that Anton is a massive rival boss from a Russian syndicate who has been trying to steal his territory. Now, the guy crossed the ultimate line by targeting his family. Ricardo looks her dead in the eye and drops the hammer. They have to go with him tonight to a secure fortress where nobody can reach them. It is pure survival mode now, guys. Here is the life lesson to take away. Past actions always have consequences, and sometimes old debts will come back to haunt the innocent people around you if you are not incredibly careful. Alessia is absolutely not having it. She throws his words right back, reminding him she literally legally divorced him to keep their kid out of this dangerous mafia drama. Ricardo looks completely shattered and admits he was wrong. You guys, seeing a proud mob boss swallow his pride is wild. He confesses he totally misjudged his enemy. He begs her to let him take control of their safety, which makes Alessia laugh in his face because control is his entire toxic brand. But then she sees it, pure, unedited terror in his eyes for their baby. He is literally begging her, knowing she hates his guts. The crucial life lesson in this moment: pride has absolutely no place in a real crisis. When lives are at stake, you have to swallow your ego and ask for help. Ricardo is basically on his knees pleading to protect of them. Right on cue, baby Juliana lets out this massive cry, breaking the heavy tension in the room. Alessia holds her shaking baby and makes a split-second call. She gives him 24 hours, then they renegotiate. You and I can literally feel Ricardo's massive sigh of relief through the screen. He sweeps them away to this insane villa hiding in the hills near Milan. We are talking high-tech fortress levels of security, making her old apartment look like a joke. He sets them up in a crazy luxury suite with a fully stocked nursery just waiting for them. The life lesson here is pretty obvious, folks. Always have a backup plan ready, because you never know when your entire life will completely flip upside down. Then he just leaves them be. Alessia is stressing out, pacing the room, and obsessively watching the camera feeds. She can see Ricardo all over the screens, going full general mode with his Mafia soldiers. This dude does not eat, does not sleep. He is just a machine locking onto his target. Fast forward to 3 a.m, and she finds him alone in the kitchen. He is looking incredibly rough, hued, suit jacket tossed aside, sleeves rolled up showing off all those intense underworld tattoos, staring at a glass of whiskey he hasn't even sipped. He immediately asks if the baby is okay, and Alessia just stands there, totally frozen. The lesson you have got to learn from this is that true dedication is what happens in the quiet, lonely hours when nobody else is watching. She asks him what his next move is. Ricardo tells her his guys are hunting the Russian boss, and once they find him, well, he stops himself. He knows she does not want to hear about the brutal revenge he is planning. But Alessia is so wired from the trauma of that threat, she actually walks over and sits right next to him. Ricardo looks at her like she just grew, a second head. He is totally stunned she is sitting near him by choice. She quickly tells him not to get any ideas, and he respectfully backs off. They just sit there in the dead of night, and crazily enough, the silence actually feels safe. Here is a solid life lesson for you. Sometimes the person who broke your world is the only one who truly understands the massive storm you are currently surviving. He finally breaks the silence, asking why she actually trusted him instead of calling the cops. Alessia keeps it brutally real. She points out that the police would be totally useless against a monster like Anton. She tells Ricardo straight up that he might be a deeply flawed, terrible husband, but he is incredibly competent at his dark job. If someone threatens their kid, he is the ultimate weapon to fix it. Then she drops a massive truth bomb. She admits she doesn't actually hate him anymore. She says hate takes too much energy, and now she is just exhausted and disappointed, which honestly cuts way deeper. The lesson here is profound, guys. Apathy is always the final stage of grief, and when someone stops having the energy to fight you, the relationship is truly over. Ricardo finally downs his whiskey and drops his ultimate confession. He tells her his love was absolutely real. She was never just a mob wife cover story. She was the only person who made him want to be a better man. So Alessia hits him with the hardest question. Why didn't he choose to be better? Ricardo gets dead quiet and gives the most brutally honest answer ever. He says being a good person is too hard and he is a total coward. Wow! Alessia looks at this insanely powerful, feared Mafia Don and realizes how deeply broken he actually is. She doesn't forgive him, but the ice is definitely cracking. Final life lesson for this story arc. Admitting your own toxic flaws is incredibly painful, but it is the very first necessary step toward real redemption. Exactly 3 days later, the threat was completely wiped off the map, gone. Alessia did not even bother asking for details. Stick with me here. Because she did not want to know what Ricardo and his ruthless mafia crew did to ensure Victor Anton never breathed near them again. Some secrets are just too dark. By the morning of the 4th day, Ricardo showed up at her door, looking absolutely wrecked, huge dark circles, exhausted, but relieved. It is done, he told her. You are safe. She nodded. Then came the heavy question. What happens next? She looked at her ex-husband, this insane mix of a terrifying monster and absolute protector. Life lesson here. Sometimes the very thing that terrifies you is exactly what keeps you safe. I want our daughter to be safe, she said. He swore he would make sure of it. But then she hit him with the real plot twist. She wanted him to have a real relationship with Juliana. No more of those awkward, supervised visits. You could see the shock flicker in the Don's cold eyes. She gathered her courage and laid it out. A man who stays awake for 3 days straight to protect his kid deserves more than 2 hours a month. She admitted her revenge might have blinded her to the future. She was not forgiving him. She still wanted to scream just being in the same room, but she saw he could be a good dad. Life lesson, holding on to bitter grudges only poisons your own future. Sometimes you just have to put your kids first. Ricardo looked at her like she had just handed him the keys to the entire universe. What do you need from me? He asked. Her answer was simple, complete, and total honesty. No hidden dangers. no mafia secrets that could put their daughter at risk. If he ever lied again, she promised to vanish so completely he would never find them. He agreed, asking only for time to figure out what kind of future they could actually build. And crazy enough, she actually believed him for the first time in months. They ended up crashing at that safe house for another whole week. Not because the bad guys were coming, but because Alicia was just too drained to face the real world yet. Life lesson. Real trust is not freely given. It is earned through absolute transparency when the stakes are highest. Listen to this. It was not some magical romance. It was a ceasefire in the brutal war they had been fighting. They started eating meals together, trading off late-night baby duties, having actual human conversations without a dozen lawyers screaming. Get this, the massive mafia boss was actually in therapy. He was reading literal parenting books with the same intense focus he used for taking over territories. "You are different," she told him. He looked right at her and admitted he was trying. Why? Because watching her walk away that night without shedding a single tear showed him the absolute monster he had become. He hated that guy. Life lesson. True change only happens when you hit rock bottom and finally hate the person staring back at you in the mirror. Ricardo swore there had not been any other women since she walked out the door. He finally realized the absolute gold mine he had thrown away. Valentina? Just some random woman he was helping out with medical bills. Obviously, Alicia Liao was not going to buy that instantly. He told her to watch him over time and decide for herself. Honestly, it was the ultimate power move. No whining, no defensive arguments, just raw actions speaking louder than words. When Alicia finally went back to her own apartment, she felt different. The massive wound he caused was still there, maybe forever, but the bleeding had finally stopped. Life lesson. You cannot force someone to trust you with words. You just have to step up and prove it with consistent actions every single day. Look at her go. She was out there rebuilding her entire life from scratch. Her small consulting business was taking off big time. Every new milestone for little Juliana was just pure joy. She was slowly crafting an identity that had absolutely nothing to do with being some mob boss's waifu. And slowly, carefully, she started a brand new dynamic with Ricardo. He would visit her apartment, spend hours playing with the baby, worked nearby. He never once pushed her boundaries. He was genuinely frustratingly putting in the real effort. One Thursday, while the baby was trying to crawl, he finally asked the big question. Could they ever rebuild what they had? Life lesson. Real independence means building your own empire, so you never have to rely on anyone else's terms. Alicia put down the baby toy and stared right into his soul. She reminded him that shattered trust takes literally years to put back together. Even if she wanted to try, it would be a brutal, painful road with zero guarantees. She asked him straight up why he would ever sign up for that kind of torture. He could easily go find someone brand new, someone without all this heavy baggage, someone who would not look at him and just see a massive betrayal. But Ricardo was dead serious. He did not want someone new. He wanted the woman who saw his best parts when he was at his absolute worst. Life lesson. True love is not about finding someone easier to deal with. It is about fighting for the one person who actually makes you want to be better. He knew she was a totally different beast now, stronger, complete. She absolutely did not need him anymore. But he was basically begging, asking if she might just want him anyway someday. Not out of obligation, but out of pure choice. Alicia just looked at this absolute unit of a man, the guy who crushed her heart into powder and then spent months trying to earn back the pieces. She hit him with the cold truth. She genuinely did not know, so he doubled down. He told her to let him keep showing up. If she never loved him again, he would just be the best co-parent ever. But if she did, he would spend his life making sure she never regretted it. Life lesson. The strongest relationships happen when two people choose each other, not because they need to, but because they want to. Look, this was not some fairy tale promise of a perfectly happy ending. There was no absolute guarantee that love was going to magically wipe out all the betrayal and the massive egos between them. But guys, it was a start, and Alessia was quickly learning that sometimes a start is all you really need. The next few months were locked in this crazy twilight zone. They were not fully back together, but they were not at war anymore either. It was this super delicate vibe. Ricardo kept showing up exactly when he promised. He was patient. He was locked in. He was literally being the man she always wished she had married. Life lesson. Do not stress over having the perfect ending figured out right away. Just focus on making a solid, honest start. It was wild because his behavior was deeply unsettling to her, not because she thought he was faking it. She had the eyes of a hawk. If he was putting on a show, she would have caught it. But seeing genuine sincerity from a ruthless guy like Ricardo, that completely shattered her worldview. One night, while he was helping the baby stand up, he caught her staring. "I am observing," she shot back. He was watching the baby with infinite patience. Then he hit her with the heavy question. What was her verdict? Was he a changed man or just the greatest liar on earth? Life lesson. When someone shatters your trust, it is fine to question everything they do until they prove their new reality. I am genuinely changed, but I am also an excellent liar. Boom. Both things are totally true. The guy was a literal mob boss. Of course he could lie. But he looked her dead in the eyes and promised that he was choosing to be honest with her now. He totally understood why she could not just blindly accept it. He knew she had to analyze every move, looking for the hidden angle. He actually apologized, not just for his betrayal, but for forcing her into this exhausting state of high alert. That self-awareness is crazy rare. Right then, little Juliana let go of the table and took 2 wobbly steps before wiping out on the floor. Life lesson. Owning your past mistakes is good, but acknowledging the lingering damage you caused is what shows true maturity. The kid looked up with pure shock on her face. Ricardo's voice actually cracked. The big bad Mafia boss was melting. She took her first steps, he said. They lunged forward at the same time, and their hands accidentally brushed. That brief touch was like a massive jolt of electricity straight through Alessia's system. She yanked her hand back way too fast. He definitely noticed it. But he kept his mouth shut. He just stayed focused on praising the baby like he was witnessing a miracle. And honestly, it really was. They created this tiny life that was growing every single day. Look, here is a life lesson for you. Sometimes the smallest, most innocent moments have the absolute power to bridge the widest gaps between 2 broken people. Listen up, guys, because this is where the drama hits absolute peak. Picture this. The divorce papers are signed. The trust is totally nuked. But they still have one massive win in their corner. Their daughter, Juliana. After Ricardo bounces and the kid is asleep, Alessia is sitting in the dark with a glass of wine, completely losing her mind over a tiny graze of his hand, just a brush of knuckles, and her body short-circuits. It is wild how your brain screams red flag, but your pulse still runs a marathon. She realizes she still finds this walking disaster attractive. She remembers exactly what it felt like to be loved by him, convinced they had forever. Real talk. The life lesson here? Your head and your heart are never in the same group chat when an ex walks in. Listen up, chat. Alessia's memories are acting like double agents right now. They're whispering that maybe this ruthless mob boss has actually changed. Is this patient guy the real Ricardo? And the cheating scumbag was just a glitch. But she fell for that trap before, and it led her straight to that bedroom door, pregnant and watching her world explode. She downs her wine and crashes alone. Cut to Juliana's first birthday. The kid is 1, she has zero clue what is happening, but Alessia throws a tiny, guarded party anyway. Then, the massive plot twist hits. Ricardo asks to show up. After a huge mental struggle, she agrees but slaps him with a strict 2-hour limit. Quick life lesson here. Guys, sometimes you absolutely have to set hard boundaries just to protect your own mental peace. She tells him to just help out and leave after cake. But boom, he shows up early and the Mafia Don dropped his suit. He is rocking dark jeans and a rolled-up shirt, flashing his mob tattoos. He actually looks human instead of like a terrifying boss. He brings a ridiculous, comical amount of pink and silver balloons. It is like a cartoon cloud in his back seat. Alessia hits him with a reality check, saying the baby will never remember this. But Ricardo claps back with pure sincerity. He says he will remember, and they will have photos to prove her dad was there. Honestly, guys, showing up for the people you care about is half the battle in life. Even Alessia gets caught off guard by how real that is. Accidentally, agreeing out loud before she can even stop herself. The Don looks at her with actual hope. Alessia admits she wants her kid to have a real bond with him. But Ricardo flips the script. He asks, "You know what you want for the kid, but what do you want for yourself?" The tension is insane right now. Alessia cracks and confesses she has no idea anymore. She thought she wanted a clean divorce and zero ties to the Moretti Mafia family. But this guy just keeps showing up, acting completely different. She is losing her mind, trying to reconcile the monster who ruined her with the sweet guy reading parenting books. He tells her they are the exact same person. People are complicated, guys. Quick life lesson. We all carry different versions of ourselves, and accepting that duality in others is incredibly hard. Ricardo drops his balloon and hits her with the raw truth. He totally owns his villain era, admitting he was the absolute monster who ruined her. No excuses, but he claims he is also the man fighting to become better. Both versions of this boss exist at the same time. Alessia is terrified. She asks the ultimate question. How can she trust that the good version will win? What if he goes right back to his dark ways in 10 years? Chat. His response is brutally honest. He tells her, "You simply don't." He openly admits his old promises are worthless now. Taking full responsibility for your past is the only way to move forward. Real life lesson here. You cannot erase the damage you have done. You can only own up to it without hiding behind empty guarantees. The only card Ricardo has left to play is pure consistency. He promises to just keep showing up until the weight of his actions proves he has actually changed. She warns him it could take years. The Mafia Don stares into her soul and says he has all the time in the world. Even if she never trusts him again, he refuses to quit. Before Alessia can even process this massive confession, guests start rolling in. Honestly, thank goodness, because that conversation was way too heavy. The party kicks off and is a total hit. Juliana is getting passed around, wearing half her cake on her face, and totally ignoring her new presents. Life lesson: consistency is absolutely everything. Words are cheap, but showing up every single day is what actually builds real trust. The baby is having the absolute time of her life. Meanwhile, Ricardo is playing it super smart. He stays in the background, not throwing his mafia weight around at all. The guests are side-eyeing him hard. Alessia's mom is icy cold, and her best friend is straight up ready to fight him. But Ricardo just takes the heat without getting defensive. He knows winning back her squad is part of the penalty. When the party finally dies down, the Don starts bagging up trash without being asked. Alessia tells him to stop, but he insists, knowing she has been standing for 6 hours. Too drained to argue, they just clean in a peaceful rhythm, moving like two people who used to share a life. Life lesson, guys. True humility means accepting the consequences of your actions without complaint. Picture this, guys. The apartment is quiet, little Juliana is asleep, and Alessia and Ricardo are stuck doing the post-birthday cleanup dance in the kitchen. Every time they brush past each other, you can practically feel the static electricity. Ricardo lingers by the door, completely frozen. "I should go," he says, but he does not move an inch. "You should," she replies. He starts to push it. "Alessia, don't." She throws her hand up like a stop sign. "Whatever you are about to say, don't," she tells him. "I can't handle any more emotional revelations tonight. I'm exhausted." She thinks he is going to pour his heart out, but he hits her with a total curveball. "I was just going to say thank you for including me today, for letting me be part of her birthday." Alessia lets out a sigh of relief, thinking she dodged a bullet. "You're welcome," she says, but then he drops the hammer. He looks right at her and adds, "And that I love you." Boom. He ignores her boundary. "I know, I'm sorry, but I can't be in the same room watching you be an incredible mother to our daughter and not tell you." She tries to stop him, but he steps toward the door. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm not expecting anything. I just need you to know that whatever happens, however this ends, I love you. I've never stopped loving you. I was just too broken to show it properly." He walks out before she can even process it. The second that door shuts, Alessia collapses onto the couch, letting out all the heavy feelings she had been suppressing all day. She is sitting there terrified because she realizes she might be falling for the mob boss all over again. Weeks go by and Alessia does what any of us do when running from our problems. She completely buries herself in work just to avoid him. But here is the crazy part. Ricardo does not push back at all. He only texts her about the kid, shows up exactly on time, and leaves on the dot. He gives her total space. Honestly, sometimes the hardest lesson in life is realizing that people actually can change, and it is terrifying when they do. His respect for her boundaries is driving her crazy because it proves he is putting her needs first. It means the dangerous guy she used to know might actually be becoming a decent, trustworthy man, and she does not want to deal with that. She does not want him to be a good guy. She wants to stay mad because holding on to anger always feels safer than risking your heart again. But carrying that heavy armor is exhausting. Then, out of nowhere on a random Wednesday, her phone rings. Ricardo sounds completely shredded. "I need you to come to the hospital," he says. "It's not Juliana. She's fine, but I need you here. Please." She is terrified. "What happened?" "Just come. I'll explain when you get here." The whole 20-minute drive is pure absolute panic for Alessia. Her mind is racing through every horrible mob movie scenario. Is it a rival gang attack? A hit gone wrong? She had totally stopped asking about his shady underground business. But now, it feels like all that danger has caught up to them. When she sprints into the cardiac ward, she finds the big, tough Mafia boss sitting in a plain hallway. His face is pale gray, and his tattooed hands are locked together like he is praying for a miracle. Ricardo. He looks up, and she sees something that absolutely blows her mind, literal tears. My father, he says, he's dying. Now, you have to understand the history here. Domenico Moretti was terrifying. Alessia had only met the old mob boss twice, and he looked at her like a bad investment. He hated that Ricardo married for love instead of securing a powerful mafia alliance. She never got why Ricardo was so desperate to please the guy. But right now, watching her scary ex-husband completely break down in a hospital corridor, her whole perspective starts to shift. It hits her right then and there. The deepest wounds we carry are the ones our parents give us, and some scars just never fade. He had a heart attack yesterday, Ricardo explains. They tried to intervene, but the damage was too extensive. He's refusing further treatment, says he's lived long enough. Alessia is stunned. He drops the ultimate plot twist. He asked to see you. That stops her dead. Me? Why? I don't know. He specifically requested you, said there was something he needed to say. Every alarm bell in her head is screaming at her to run away from this cruel man. Why walk in just to be insulted again? But she looks at Ricardo's eyes, full of grief and total desperation, and her heart just caves in. Okay, she whispers, I'll see him. Picture this, guys. The ultimate mafia godfather, Domenico Moretti, is lying in some ultra VIP hospital room, kept alive by a bunch of humming machines. This guy used to run the entire underworld, but now he just looks like a tiny, frail old man sinking into the white bed sheets. His body is giving up, but those eyes are still sharp as a knife. He calls out for our girl, Alessia, his voice sounding like straight gravel. She tells him straight up she only showed because his son begged her to do it. No sugarcoating, just pure ice. Domenico actually gives this weak little smile because she never fakes it with him. He tells her the doctors gave him maybe a week left to live. You know, sometimes you spend your whole life chasing absolute power, but at the end of the day, we all end up in the exact same kind of bed. We cut to the hospital room, and the big bad mafia boss himself, Domenico, is on his deathbed, spilling the tea. He looks Alessia in the eye and commands her to listen. He straight up tells her he never approved of her, thinking Ricardo was a total fool for marrying a girl with zero mob connections and nothing to offer but love. He admits he brainwashed his son into thinking love was a massive weakness, but here is the plot twist. The old man actually says he was dead wrong. Alessia does not even blink. Domenico takes the heat for Ricardo wrecking the marriage, the side pieces, the lies. He owns up to raising his heir to believe family was purely about cold hard power. It shows you that the hardest lessons in life usually come when you are totally out of time to fix your mistakes. He admits he taught Ricardo that wives are just trophies for the bloodline, not actual partners. He basically handed his son a free pass to separate his street life from his marriage, greenlighting everything that broke her heart. You and I both know how toxic that is, right? But then he hits her with the real reason for this morbid chat. He says Ricardo is completely different now, and swears it is not a trap. How does he know? Because the icy mafia heir, the guy who never shows a crack of emotion, sat with his dying dad for 3 straight hours confessing his failures. He listed every single way he wants to change and become a man actually worthy of Alessia. Domenico is completely shook because his ruthless son had never shown an ounce of vulnerability before this exact moment. The Don is gasping, telling her Ricardo finally smashed down the walls between them. He let his father see the real man underneath the mafia armor. Alessia feels her throat completely close up. Domenico drops the ultimate truth bomb. saying Ricardo genuinely loves her. Not that weird, possessive mobster love he was raised on, but the real deal. The kind of love that makes a corrupted man want to be better. His shaking hand reaches for her, begging her as a dying man to give his son one last shot for the sake of their kid. Alessia tries to say it is not that simple, but he tells her true love is incredibly rare, especially the kind of love that survives a brutal betrayal and actually transforms into pure, unshakable devotion. Sometimes, the darkest mistakes forge the strongest bonds. He tells her not to let his garbage parenting choices rob her of a lifetime of happiness, then collapses into his pillows, totally drained. Alessia lets this info dump sink in, thanking him for finally listening. The Don closes his eyes and tells her to send Ricardo in for his final goodbye. She steps into the hallway and finds Ricardo frozen. He asks what went down. Stressed out of his mind, she tells him his dad is sorry for a lot of things. And guys, right here, she actually reaches out and touches his arm. It is the very first time she's willingly laid a finger on him in over a year, and she feels this terrifying boss trembling under her hand. She just tells him to go be with his father. Sometimes all it takes one small moment of grace to shift the entire energy of a broken relationship. She tells him she is going to wait. He says she does not have to, but she shuts that down and tells him to go. Alessia sinks into his empty chair, her brain racing. Knowing Ricardo was programmed to be a toxic partner by his mob dad does not give him a free pass. Nothing excuses what he did. But it finally helps her understand how a guy could be fiercely in love with her, yet still stab her in the back. Life teaches us that people are molded by their trauma, but the real test is whether they break that mold. Now, she is sitting there wondering, is this new version of Ricardo the real deal, or just a temporary glitch caused by grief? She does not know the answer, but for the first time since everything blew up, she actually wants to stick around and find out. 4 days later, the Don dies. The funeral is an absolute mob spectacle. I am talking hundreds of guests from both the legal corporate side and the shady underground. The church is stuffed with dramatic flowers and fake crying. It is all a massive theatrical performance these crime families put on when the boss drops. Alessia shows up, telling herself it is just so their kid has representation. But let us be real, you and I know the truth is Mafia. She actually went for Ricardo. Grief is a heavy beast to carry solo, and she remembers how fiercely he protected her during her pregnancy before his double life got exposed. Deep down, despite the brutal betrayal and the drama, a small piece of her still desperately cared if he made it through this emotional wreckage in one piece. She is posted in the back of the church holding Juliana, watching Ricardo step to the mic. His eulogy is shockingly raw. He does not sugarcoat the messed up dynamic he had with his dad, but still gives him respect. Mid-speech, he scans the crowd and locks eyes with her. Guys, his entire vibe flips in a millisecond. It is not a smile, but all that lethal mob tension just drains out of his face. It is a silent confirmation that, out of everyone there, her presence is the only thing keeping him sane. Flash forward, past the burial and the endless reception where he is shaking hands like a numb robot. Once the coast is clear, Alessia slips away and tracks him down. Finally, finding the cold-blooded heir, hiding out completely alone in one of the quiet side gardens of the estate. He is sitting on a stone bench staring at his tattooed hands. She sits next to him without saying a word. They wait in the heavy silence until he finally mutters a quiet thank you. He knows she did not owe his twisted family anything. She fires back, reminding him he is the father of her kid, and since he helped her when she was struggling, she is returning the favor. He looks up, his dark eyes red, and asks if her being here is purely an obligation. She realizes being honest is dangerous, but necessary. She tells him she has been replaying his dad's dying words, analyzing his recent actions, and honestly, she is completely exhausted. You learn quickly that playing defense in a broken relationship will drain your soul faster than anything else. She unloads everything. She is sick of carrying this anger, sick of waiting for him to slip up, just so she can justify keeping her defenses dialed to 100. He admits that sounds like absolute torture. She tells him dropping those walls is pure nightmare fuel, because if he betrays her again, she will not survive it. He stares at her with this insane, burning focus. He admits he cannot predict the future, but swears on his life he will fight for her every single day. He knows he nuked her trust, and his promises are basically worthless now. But this former untouchable boss is literally begging for a shot to rebuild, brick by brick, moving exactly as slowly as she needs. He is completely surrendering all of his dominance just for a single chance to prove himself. He pleads with her to let him try. Alessia lays down the ultimate ultimatum. She says if she tries to open up and cannot do it, then at least they get a final answer. She kills the false hope, and he stops drowning in guilt. Guys, this is a massive shift. He is giving her a clean escape hatch with zero mafia manipulation. She agrees, but the rules are strict. They move at a glacial pace, acting strictly as friends before even thinking about romance. The absolute deal breaker? If he feeds her even one tiny lie ever again, he is dead to her forever. No second chances. She zeroes in on his face, scanning him with those lie-detecting skills she picked up from surviving his shady underworld, aggressively hunting for even a single flinch of hesitation. She finds zero deception. All she sees is this terrifying, desperate sincerity. She takes a breath and drops the magic word. Okay, they will try. But trying for them is not about flashy dates or grand gestures. We are talking weekly family dinners where they sit down together as a unit. It means making parenting choices through real conversations instead of firing shots through lawyers. They are painstakingly rebuilding the baseline friendship that got wrecked when the romance went toxic. Ricardo is showing levels of patience that are shockingly rare for a crime boss. When her trauma flares up, he just sits there and takes the heat. He absorbs her sudden bursts of anger without ever making excuses, letting her process the pain. When she pulls away, he backs off. When she reaches out, he is right there. She grills him about his past, and he answers with brutal honesty. She asks about side pieces before Valentina. He admits there were tons, explaining how his dad taught him to put his street life in one box and his marriage in another. But he owns the damage, refusing to make excuses. She asks if he still sees them, and he swears that the second she left, he ghosted everyone. That era is dead now. You and I both know she is not dumb, so she runs a background check through her own underworld contacts. Verifying the facts before you trust a known liar is a life lesson everyone needs to write down. Slowly but surely, every single claim he made checks out. It happens so slowly she barely clocks it, but her iron defenses start coming down. Cut to Juliana's second birthday, and the vibe is totally different. The guest list is packed with the new circle Alessia built. Ricardo is not awkwardly crashing the event. He is there from minute one, stepping up as the ultimate co-host. They are dodging toddlers and putting out party fires together like a total dream team, moving with the chemistry of two people who relearned how to sync up. Alessia's mom watches from the side, quietly pointing out how solid they look together. Alessia just smirks and admits they are getting better. But she keeps it completely real, dropping one final reality check. She still does not trust him yet. Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and a lifetime to repair. Cut to a completely different vibe. Alasia is finally glowing. Her mom pulls her aside, saying she is so much happier now that she cut ties with her toxic past. But moms being moms, she drops a quick warning to keep her guard up. Fast forward to later that night. The party wraps up. Little Juliana is knocked out from a sugar crash, and Ricardo is still hanging around. This is the big moment. He stands near the door, testing the waters, saying he should probably leave unless she wants him to stay. Until now, they played it so safe with their little friendship. Alasia feels her heart hammering in her chest. She takes the leap and tells him to stay, just for one single drink. It really goes to show that true healing starts the second you finally let the right people into your life. Picture this scene, because you and I are going to unpack this crazy drama together. She poured the wine, hands shaking just a bit. They sat on the exact same couch where she used to sob for hours after finally leaving him. Now, it was just regular furniture again. They talked about their kid, Juliana about work, and maybe building a future, taking it one agonizing step at a time. Then, boom, his hand found hers. And the wild part? She did not pull away. That touch was electric and familiar, carrying the heavy baggage of everything that went down between them. "I have missed this," he whispered, "just being close, not asking for anything." She admitted. She missed it too, even though saying it out loud hurt her pride. "Do not push," she warned him, squeezing his hand. "Let us just have this moment," she told him. Just this. They sat there in a comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the city lights outside her window. It was not forgiveness, and it definitely was not full reconciliation yet. But it was real, and honestly, sometimes real is all you need to keep moving. Fast forward 3 months, and she actually let him kiss her. It happened so naturally that it felt inevitable. They had been cracking up over something, Juliana said. Their faces got close. The laughter suddenly died, and he hit her with that intense look he used to give her. She found herself leaning in. The kiss was soft and full of questions. It was absolutely nothing like the crazy, hungry passion they shared back when they were married. This kiss was brutally honest. It was a moment between two people who had fought through pure devastation and still chose to roll the dice one more time. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I have been wanting to do that for 2 years," he admitted. She knew. Was it okay? It was way more than okay. But she was not ready to say that out loud and give him that much power yet. He got the hint. "I will go now," he said, "before I push my luck." Probably a smart move. He gave her a respectful kiss on the forehead and left. Alasia touched her lips, wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the bravest decision ever. The lesson here? Fear and bravery usually look exactly the same in the moment. The months that followed were a careful dance of progress and retreat. Two people learning to trust again, knowing exactly how much damage that trust could cause in the wrong hands. They went on real dates, the fancy kind needing babysitters, reservations, and those nervous butterflies of a new romance. They talked endlessly about their broken marriage, about the toxic stuff that went wrong, and what they would do differently. They bumped heads, argued, and yelled things they had to apologize for later. But guess what? They kept showing up every single day. They pushed through the brutal conversations most people dodge. Slowly, the trust rebuilt itself. It was not the blind, naive trust of their very first marriage. This trust was heavily battle-tested and totally resilient. Stick with me, because this is where the plot thickens. The night everything shifted was just an ordinary Tuesday. Juliana was at her grandmother's house for a sleepover, her first time away overnight since the messy divorce. The apartment felt super empty without her. Ricardo came over for dinner. They actually cooked together, a cool new skill they picked up during this cautious truce. The kitchen was warm with steam, spices, and the easy banter of two people remembering how to hang out. After dinner, they poured wine. The conversation drifted from boring stuff to actual memories, the good ones they almost totally buried under all their heavy trauma. "Do you remember our second anniversary?" he suddenly asked her, shifting the vibe entirely. He brought up their old trip to Pasatano. "I remember you getting completely seasick on the ferry," he teased. "I was not seasick," she shot back. "I was just contemplatively quiet." He laughed, reminding her that she turned a very dignified shade of green. She completely cracked up, and it was a real laugh too, the kind that comes from pure joy, not just being polite. He watched her with total wonder on his face. "I had forgotten," he said softly. "Forgotten what?" "The sound of your real laugh," he told her. "Not the careful one, but the one that proves you actually forgot to keep your guard up around me." She stopped laughing instantly, suddenly hyper-aware of her own vulnerability. But instead of running away, she stood her ground. "I am scared," she admitted. "I really want this to work. I really want to believe you have changed," she told him. "But every time I let myself relax, part of me is waiting for the trap to spring." He nodded, telling her that was totally reasonable. "But it is exhausting," she fired back. He agreed again. "How do we even move forward when I am constantly waiting for you to wreck me?" He looked at her with pure seriousness. "Maybe we do not try to eliminate the fear," he said. "Maybe we just let it exist right alongside everything else we are trying to build. You might be waiting for me to hurt you for years, maybe forever. I cannot magically fix that in one night. I can only keep not hurting you, day after day, until the solid evidence finally outweighs your deep fear." Talk about a massive reality check for the both of them. "That is a crazy amount of pressure on you," she warned him. He did not flinch. "I caused the massive damage, so repairing it is my problem. What if you get tired? What if you decide the work is not worth the hassle?" He looked at her dead in the eyes. "You are absolutely worth it. Juliana is worth it. This family is worth it, and I will never back down." She desperately searched his face for any sign of a lie or some hidden agenda, but she found nothing except raw honesty. "I want to believe you," she whispered. "Then just believe me," he said, reaching for her hand. "Do not do it blindly. Just believe me enough to keep trying." She stared at their hands. His skin was still covered in those hardcore tattoos that used to thrill her, then disgusted her, and now just belonged to him. "Okay," she breathed out and leaned right in to kiss him. Guys, this kiss was totally different. It was not soft or questioning. A massive barrier finally shattered, and what poured out was pure hunger, the kind of desperation they had buried under years of betrayal and boundaries. His hands grabbed her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair, and they kissed like two people who had been starving for years and finally got to eat. When they broke apart, gasping for air, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. "Tell me to leave, and I am gone. Stay." The words slipped out before her brain could stop it. His eyes locked onto hers. "Are you totally sure?" Was she sure? Absolutely not. But life teaches us that perfect certainty is just a luxury we rarely get. She knew she might never be totally sure about anything involving this guy ever again. But here is a simple lesson. You do not need perfect certainty to have courage. I am sure I want this, she told him. I am sure I want you. We will figure out the rest of the drama later. He kissed her again, way deeper this time, and she shut her brain off and just let herself feel. Fast forward to the next morning. She woke up with the sun blasting through the curtains and his heavy arm around her waist. For one crazy second, she forgot all the toxic betrayal and the divorce. She was just a woman waking up next to her man. Then reality hit. She braced herself for a massive wave of regret. But guess what? It never came. Instead, she just felt this incredible sense of peace wash over her. The peace was super fragile, but it was real. It felt like a heavy door had just swung open to a brand new chapter, not erasing the dark past, but starting something totally fresh. You are thinking way too loudly, Ricardo mumbled, keeping his eyes glued shut. I am just processing, she replied. Good processing or bad, she thought about it. Good, I think. He finally opened his eyes and faced her. In that soft morning light, he looked so much younger and completely unguarded. The guy was literally wearing his heart on his sleeve and showing the exact vulnerability she had spent months looking for. Any regrets? He asked quietly. Ask me in a few hours, she joked. He groaned that it was not reassuring. But it is honest, she said, touching the rough stubble along his jawline. I literally have no idea what this means yet, she whispered. I do not know what we are right now, but I know I did not make a mistake last night. He kissed the palm of her hand. That is more than enough. The months that followed threw completely new tests at them. They lived apart, but kept building this wild connection, slowly introducing their kid to the idea of them actually being together. They had to dodge the heavy judgment of friends who thought they were out of their minds. Ricardo played it incredibly smart, moving super slow and letting her set the speed limit. They did not hide their romance, but they definitely did not announce it on social media either. They just let everyone else lose their minds, trying to figure out what those lingering glances meant. Soon enough, they were back to finishing each other's sentences. This is dangerously toxic, her best friend warned her. You are totally setting yourself up to be wrecked again. Maybe, Alicia shot back, or maybe I am actually giving myself a real shot at the life I want. He is a different guy now. Is he different enough? That is the million-dollar question, and honestly, she only had hope to lean on. When the big proposal finally dropped, it was absolutely nothing like their flashy first engagement. No insane five-star restaurant, no massive diamond ring to flex his mafia wealth. It was just the three of them chilling in her living room on a lazy Sunday afternoon, while their daughter was literally just playing with some wooden blocks on the rug. Guys, picture this absolute movie scene. The big bad mafia don Ricardo is literally sitting on the floor, playing with toy blocks like a totally normal dad. His girl Alicia is just chilling, reading a book, soaking in this crazy domestic peace. Out of nowhere, the boss looks up and drops a casual nuke. He tells her to marry him again. No pressure, not because of their kid, just straight up because he wants her. He says they fought way too hard for this comeback arc to not finish it. She's staring at him like he lost his mind. It is the absolute worst proposal ever, but also raw as hell. This is the exact same ruthless dude who completely shattered her heart and then spent 3 straight years grinding to glue it back together. Look, Ricardo still wears his dangerous boss energy like a bulletproof vest, but he finally let her behind the armor. Alessa is not letting him off the hook easy, though. She tells him to ask properly. Suddenly, a massive, genuine smile breaks out on his face. Not the scary mobster smirk, but a real one she thought was gone forever. He leaves the baby smashing toy blocks, walks over, and drops to one knee. The Don is literally on his knees. He tells her he does not deserve her, never has, but he spent 36 months trying to level up into a man who actually does. He wants to spend his entire life proving it. Then he pulls out a box. He tells her he was terrified to ask, but he has been carrying this ring in his pocket for 3 straight months, just waiting for the exact right moment. You would expect a massive, blinding diamond from a mafia boss, right? Nope. He pops open the box, and it is just a super clean, simple white gold band. Nothing flashy. It is the exact opposite of the rock he bought her the first time, matching how real they are now. She hits him with a yes, and the relief is insane. Fast forward to the wedding. They keep it low-key. Just family and real ones in a garden out in Milan on a gorgeous spring day. Their little girl is the flower girl, absolutely speed, walking down the aisle and throwing petals everywhere. Alessia is rocking a white dress again, not to fake being a new bride, but because this whole thing is a total reset. They are not rebooting the old marriage. They are dropping a brand new season. Ricardo is waiting at the altar, looking incredibly sharp in a dark suit. You can still see all his mob tattoos on his neck and knuckles, flashing his ruthless history to everyone. But the dude wearing the ink is completely different now. Alessia walks up and tells him he looks absolutely terrified, and the boss literally admits it. He is shaking in his custom shoes, terrified he is going to ruin everything again, terrified he will wake up and find out this redemption arc was just a dream. She looks him dead in the eyes and tells him to prove it is real. So he does. They lock it down and get married again, dropping vows they actually wrote themselves. No generic script, just pure honesty. They put all their messy history on the table and swear to do so much better this time around. Listen to these vows. She looks at this former mafia terror and says she will trust him, not because it is easy, but because he actually put in the work to earn it. He fires back, promising to honor her, choosing every single day to be the man she deserves. She says they will build a family because they survived the absolute worst. He promises to love her completely for the rest of his life. When the official says they are married, Ricardo plants a huge kiss on her while their kid is screaming and everyone is losing their minds cheering. Right then, Alessia feels this crazy sense of peace. Not that fake, blind trust from their first wedding when she had no clue about his double life. This is the real deal. True strength always comes after you survive the fire, never before. This new bond is bulletproof because they fought for it. The after party is absolute beautiful chaos, just loud music, amazing food, and everyone actually having fun. Their first wedding was a stiff, boring flex to impress the underworld bosses. But this time, they are tearing up the dance floor, holding each other tight while their kid jumps in. Ricardo leans into her ear and asks if she is truly happy. She hits him with a fast, solid yes. He asks if there is a catch. Nope, just a straight up yes. He pulls back, looking deep into her eyes, and she catches a glimpse of the family tattoo on his neck. Before, that ink felt like a massive, toxic joke. But looking at the boss right now, completely transformed for his family, that tattoo finally means exactly what it says. He looks at her like she is his entire world and swears he will spend the rest of his life earning this second chance. She tells him straight up, if things go sideways again, they will handle it together as a team. This is not some toxic denial anymore. It is hardcore, realistic hope. They survived his insane betrayal, a brutal divorce, and clawed their way back from rock bottom. Whatever life throws at them next, they are going to body it together. Fast forward 2 years, and boom, a new heir enters the chat. Their son Marco drops into the world on a rainy morning in November. This kid is incredibly loud, perfectly healthy, and already flexing that legendary, stubborn mafia boss energy he got straight from his dad. You absolutely love to see a real family win. Can you imagine the most feared guy in the city breaking down? Ricardo is holding his newborn boy and straight up crying his eyes out. The old, cold-blooded Don would have never let anyone see him sweat, let alone cry. Their 4-year-old daughter is staring at her new brother like he is an alien, announcing to the room that the baby is way too loud. Alicia just laughs and reminds her she was exactly the same way. The squad is finally complete. It looks totally different from the fake fairy tale she wanted on her first wedding day. It is way messier, and they walked through pure hell to get here, but it is a million times better. Years start rolling by. The kids are growing up fast. Life throws some curveballs, but the family stays rock solid. Ricardo actually keeps his word. Ricardo even completely overhauled his empire. The family business is still a massive powerhouse. Do not get it twisted, but he cleaned it up. It is legitimate now, turning into an operation his kids will not have to hide from. It took a minute, but Alicia finally let her guard drop. She will never erase the memory of how bad he burned her, but the man he became proved himself every single day. He put in the grind to show he was worth the risk. Fast forward to a massive milestone. It is their 10th wedding anniversary. Counting from the real wedding, they ditched the kids with grandma for a rare date night and head straight back to that exact same garden where they locked down their second chance. Pure cinematic poetry right there, just taking a second to appreciate the long road. They walk down the exact same paths, getting nostalgic about the flowers and their daughter going crazy as the flower girl. Then Ricardo gets serious and asks the heavy question. He wants to know if she ever regrets giving him a second shot. He is terrified she still looks at him and sees the ruthless villain who nuked their life. Alicia keeps it 100% real. She admits that sometimes when he is late coming home or taking a secret phone call, that old trauma spikes. She still feels the ghost of that fear waiting for a betrayal. Ricardo looks absolutely gutted and apologizes, but she shuts it down. She tells him not to be sorry. It is his fault she has that trauma, but she made peace with the constant vigilance. It is just how her brain is wired now after all the madness. She asks him the real kicker. Has that fear ever actually been confirmed in 10 years? No, never. She tells him that fact alone helps shut down the anxiety. She stops dead in her tracks, looks him right in the soul, and says she does not regret a single thing, not even the brutal nights when she thought she was playing herself by taking him back. She points at the gorgeous garden, at the peaceful life they fought so incredibly hard to build from the ashes. She tells him this reality right here is worth going to war for. The big boss instantly drops his head and mutters that he does not deserve her. She just smiles, leans in, and gives him the kind of kiss that proves they made it. Sometimes the best life lesson is knowing what is actually worth the deep pain of rebuilding. He pulls back, resting his forehead against hers, and tells her he loves her. He makes it clear it is not that toxic, possessive obsession he had back in the day. He loves the absolute warrior she became, the woman who survived his worst mistakes and still found the guts to try again. She tells him she loves him too, and the words just flow naturally. She says it is not because he is flawless, but because he actively chooses to be a better man every single day. Chat, take notes. Daily effort beats fake perfection any time. They just stand there soaking in the sunset. Two people who completely wrecked each other, only to build something totally unbreakable. Forget the fake fairy tales. This is how a real love story ends. Not with a perfect screen fade, but as a massive work in progress. His betrayal completely shattered them, but real love, the hardcore kind that demands actual work and insane patience, glued them back together. They are permanently scarred, but totally whole. Their kids are going to grow up knowing that a real family can survive the absolute worst storms. Their son will learn that being a true boss means owning your epic failures and doing the heavy lifting to fix them. Ricardo and Alicia, the terrifying underworld kingpin, and the brave woman who actually dared to walk away, are going to keep choosing each other every single day. Because at the end of the day, guys, love is never about dodging mistakes. It is about having the ultimate courage to fix the mess you made and the grace to let someone heal you in return. What a phenomenal ending. This carries a strong emotional lesson about betrayal, self-respect, motherhood, the difficult question of whether broken trust can ever be rebuilt. Alessia Moretti begins the story as a pregnant wife who believes she is coming home to share joyful news about her baby. Instead, but she walks into the most painful truth of her marriage. Her husband Ricardo has betrayed her in their own bed. In that moment, Alessia does not scream or collapse. She quietly chooses herself and her unborn daughter. The first important lesson is that betrayal does not only break love, it breaks reality. Alessia must re-examine everything she believed about her marriage. The late nights, the excuses, the emotional distance, the promises, all of it becomes suspicious after one devastating discovery. This teaches viewers that dishonesty does not damage only the present moment. It reaches backward and poisons memories that once felt safe. Another meaningful lesson is about self-respect. Alessia is deeply hurt, but she refuses to beg for love or accept humiliation as the price of marriage. She understands that staying silent would teach her daughter the wrong lesson. Her decision to leave is not only about anger, it is about protecting the kind of woman her child may one day become. She does not want Juliana to grow up believing that betrayal is normal, or that a woman must sacrifice dignity to keep a family together. The story also shows that motherhood can awaken a new courage. Alessia is not thinking only as a wounded wife. She is thinking as a mother. Every decision, divorce, custody, boundaries, legal action is shaped by the desire to give her daughter a safer emotional inheritance. This is powerful because it shows for a child can help someone break patterns they're tolerated for themselves. Ricardo's test journey offers another lesson. Regret is not the same as redemption. He suffers after losing Alessia, but pain alone does not make him worthy of forgiveness. What matters is whether he changes through action. Over time, he signs the custody agreement, respects boundaries, shows up consistently for Juliana, helps Valentina during illness without asking for praise, protects his family from danger, and tries to become a better father. These actions do not erase his betrayal, but they show that real accountability requires humility, patience, and repeated proof. The story wisely avoids making forgiveness simple. Alessia does not immediately return because Ricardo apologizes. She watches him over time. She verifies facts. She protects her boundaries. This is an important educational message. Forgiveness, if it happens, should never be rushed or demanded. Trust is rebuilt slowly through consistent behavior, not emotional speeches. For viewers, the deepest lesson is this. Love without loyalty is not enough. A person says, I love you, but love must be proven through respect, honesty, and self-control. At the same time, people can change, but only when they fully face the harm they caused. Alessia's story teaches that strength is not only walking away. Sometimes strength is leaving, healing, setting boundaries, and then deciding freely what kind of future is truly deserved.